forward the rest of this for Joe, just in case there's any tidbits I miss. But yeah, so did you get the draft opinion piece?
I did,
Joe
yeah.
sent over a couple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's not well written, and it's not, when you read the first paragraph, you don't want to read it anymore, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So that has to be because it's a technical and arguably tedious subject. You have to sort of make it set it up so that the thing between the writer and the reader is, look, I know this is sort of tedious, but bear with me because it's important, right?
Great.
So what you would do, I think, is you would start with, you probably never heard of memory safety.
All right.
And then I'm sort of vamping here, but you probably never heard of memory safety, but period. But it's something that any number of people in the national security or national security establishment think about on a daily basis. Okay, that's a pretty good lead paragraph, right? 2 sentences, kind of draw you in, right?
You've probably never heard of memory safety, but hackers have, or the Chinese and Russian hackers have, or is that
no? You're talking about memory safety. Your headline is memory safety now, right?
Right.
And what you're doing with the reader is you're saying, look, this is tedious, but it's important. So A, pay attention, but B, you'll know the jargon. You'll come out of it knowing the jargon. Okay, which is always important to people in Washington, is that they be on the inside and they know the jargon, right? So you say, you probably never heard of the term memory safety, but hundreds of people or thousands of people or whatever the number is, think about in the National Security Council, in the national security establishment, think about it on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
So that's your open, and you've set up 2 things. 1, what does it mean? And 2, why is it important? What does it mean? You're going to answer. Why it's important is because a whole bunch of people in the National Security Establishment, think about it on a daily basis. I assume that's true, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, okay. So now you've got the reader interested. You've engaged the reader. They want to know what memory safety is, and they want to know why it's important. Okay. So the second paragraph is, what is memory safety exactly? Okay, so there's, you're going to answer that question for me. That's great. Tell me what it is. Tell them what it is, right? And take all of the jargon out of it and make it as simple as possible, right? So compiled code languages, unintentional mistakes developers make, exposing the code to compromise. You got to boil this down a little bit, okay? Like, everybody understands that they have photos in memory on their phones, right? This is not that, obviously, but it is.
Right.
They get the idea of memory. What they're not sure is how memory works on a computer or iPhone or whatever, and then how it would be compromised. So if you say, what is memory safety? You say, this is what it is, right? This is how it works, right? And this is how it can be compromised, right?
Okay. And so
now you've answered.
An example.
Yeah.
I just want to test a theory with you for a second, or a way that we've talked about it in the past. Like, and this may be too cumbersome, but memory safety, the way people misuse it is sort of like taking the letters out of a magazine and creating a ransom note. Like if they, an attacker is able to take parts of your program that's already in memory and use it in unintended ways targeting you, sort of like taking the letters out of a magazine to create a ransom note and cause havoc.
Hey,
Yeah.
Joe's here.
However you can make it as simple as, as straightforward, not necessarily simple, but as straightforward as possible. Right.
Can I give an
yeah.
example also, John? This is Joe.
Hi.
This is straight out of the Washington Post article by Tim Starks from February 1 on the Cyber 202. And in that article, what he says is, let me just find it again. Hold on. Memory has to be allocated for computer code to carry out instructions, and programming languages like C and C++ allow developers to move that memory around manually. And so that's what he's saying is the weakness in the software based on memory in the article he wrote in February. Does that resonate with you, or is that complex?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this. I don't know if you were on the phone or not, but the thing is that you start with we start as I said to Doug, you're doing two things, and then you're getting to what is memory safety, right? So you need a clear explanation of what that is, right? And why, how it works, and why it's vulnerable.
Right.
And then you get to the part, well, the second part, which is why that's important. Give us an example of how it could shut down critical infrastructure in the US or whatever. Or better yet, give us a live example, something that actually happened, where you could see the full potential of the malware, if you will. And then the final part, obviously, is what needs to be done to ensure that these terrible things don't happen. That's the basic structure of an op-ed.
Okay. And in our article, we said that there's a national threat to critical infrastructure based on what Jen Easterly said. And the underlying problem is related to this memory problem. And then we say what memory safety is and what is a memory weakness in kind of the next section.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is you have the open. I gave Doug what I think is the right open, and you get to.
Yeah, and I've got that. I've got it recorded, and we'll be able to chew on it.
You get this. You got the what is memory safety? Why is it important? How does it work? Why is it important? How is it compromised? How can it be compromised? And then you have real life examples, right? Or real, hypothetical examples that are, two of them that are concise and clear and people get the idea. And then the final is, what do we need to do? That's your op-ed. That's the structure. And if you work with that structure, that will fit the way they think.
Okay.
If you start with, this is, there's Jen Easterly and this is what she said and blah, 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 you're way ahead of them. They want to know, they want the open, they want to know what it is. They want, they want you to take the reader from point A to point Z. They don't want you to take the reader from point N back to point B and then over to point W. And
I think, Jen, you also expressed an interesting idea of how to make this work. Look at it partly as educational, and so we start with this opening question of what is memory safety, and then lead the reader on a bit of a journey where part of the outcome is they learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing is you're saying, look, here is the subject, okay, and pay attention because it's important, right? Okay, so it's a subject, and I have to pay attention because it's important, right? You're the reader. You say, okay, I buy it. I'll take it. Where are we going, right? Then you whack them with, here's the subject, memory safety, right? Or, electric vehicles, or it doesn't make any difference, parking tickets, right? You set it up. Now you've introduced the subject. You explain what the subject is. Depending on how much room you have and what you want to say, explain what the subject is. You explain how it works. You explain why it's important. And in this case, you may go on to explain how it would be compromised. You then say, this is not hypothetical. This is real. Okay. Now you say it's real because this happened to, the Bulgarians or something, right? Some story that fits with what you're trying to say, right? Now you brought the reader, oh, okay, I get it. It's important. I see how it works in the real world. What am I going to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to tell my senator because I'm a staffer on Capitol Hill or whatever? And that's when you deliver. This is what you need to do.
And I don't mean to question you, John. I just want to try a slightly different angle on you to get your reaction to it. Instead of us establishing memory safety as a problem and what it is and how to solve it, the government is saying it's a problem, and they've got an approach that is super expensive and will take 10 years. And so isn't the problem that, hey, the government realizes there's an urgent threat and that their approach is, may take 10 or 20 years. And what we really want the reader to walk away with is there's a solution now that takes one or 2 years. So instead of focusing in on the technology problem, isn't it a matter of a policy problem that needs to be addressed sooner and not get lost in the technical details as much?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you want to get lost in the technical details. I just think you need people to understand it and why it's a critical threat or whatever. But also remember that the government is your client, okay? So telling them that they're fucking up is not going to work. You need to tell them, the government has done this, and no doubt they'll do a good job, but we think we can help them do it even faster.
And that's what we wrote. Exactly. We said, hey, their approach is great. It's the right long-term solution. The challenge, of course, is that something needs to be solved in the next year or so. So here's a way to achieve that.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
That's part 4. Okay. But that's the basic structure. Hold on one second. Tell you later. I love that feature. You can text. Yeah, so that's the basic structure, right? And you want to make it as lean as possible, and you want to stay away from jargon as much as you can. But it should come, you should walk the reader to, wow, that's a problem. I had no idea. I'm happy that the government is looking at it, but these guys might be right. We may need to move faster.
That's it.
I mean, really, you're writing this for like 5 Senate staffers, okay? I mean, that's what we're really talking about. When and if it appears, I'm going to send it to Tom Cotton and his entire staff. They're all subscribers to news items. And I'll say, you really should take a look at this, okay? So that's who you're writing it to. Just imagine that you're talking to Tom Cotton's chief of staff, or Tom Cotton's national security guy, or Tom Cotton himself, right? And Tom has pretty good relations across the aisle, not all 50 or whatever, but he's friends with he works out with 3 or 4 Democrats every morning. So in the gym. So that's what you're doing. You're talking to him and you're saying, and you're walking him through it so he understands it, and that he's what you're trying to get done is he writes a letter or an inquiry to whoever it is that heads up the intelligence apparatus, and says, gee, what are we doing about this? Are these guys right? That's it. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, we've had a similar thought that it's targeting that audience, and also, select people in the office of the National Cyber Director.
Well, that I'm sure is true. I mean, I'm sure that they would pay attention. Anything in the Washington Post or the Hill or whatever that is about what they do is going to be collected by their press office and put into the daily clips, right? Because every department has a daily clip service, so they get everything that's written about them, so they know what's going on, right? So yeah, you will be talking to those people, but the people that matter most, not matter only, but matter most, are the oversight people, and that's Congress and the administration. If Tom Cotton calls and says, well, we really ought to look into this, they have to look into it. They can't say, okay, Senator, and then not do it. Because it goes on the little list, and the little aide from Arkansas calls up 2 weeks later and says, can we give Senator Cotton an update on where we are on this?
So that's what, so the process right now is in fiscal year 23 appropriation. They called for a briefing by the Office of National Cyber Director, which is Executive Office of President, to Congress to say what the state of memory safety is. That's
when is that?
That's what this article is about.
No, I know that, but when?
180 days from December 20th. It, based on the subcommittee staffers we've been briefing, they think it'll be between 180 and 210 days. So 180 days would be June 23rd. So it could be between June 23rd and July 23rd. And so
that's good.
Congress Womack is a key person. And we've briefed their staffers, and we've also briefed the subcommittee professional staffers who will be in that briefing to ask questions. And so we're trying to time this article to be consistent with the language we use to brief them.
Got it. Okay. That's good. That's good. That sounds really good.
Cool. Okay, so we can take your feedback and look at our article and see how to restructure it to frame the problem differently around the technology problem, right?
Yeah. You also have an 800-word issue. I don't know what your word count is, but you got, with this kind of piece, you got to come in at 750 to 800.
Okay, I was told 800 to 1,000. This is 950.
That was me, but I'm wrong. I now that I've read it, 750 to 800.
Okay. Okay.
In a newspaper, when you look at the Washington Post and the right-hand column of what used to be the op-ed page has a column by whomever it is, somebody, from top to bottom with the headline and the byline, that's 740 to 760 words. And that's the most you're going to get, I think. Not because it's not important, whatever. It's just the way they are. They'd much rather have a piece that says Trump is horrible. So you're competing. The problem with modern opinion pages is that half of them are given over to how horrible Trump is and Fox is and Pence is and all these people are. And so, the ability to get in with something interesting like this is twice as hard as it should be. But there's nothing we can do about that. So,
and John, I hope you can appreciate my question. If I can just pose it this way to be a little, I don't know, challenging. The problem is that China can undermine our critical infrastructure.
Right.
It's not memory vulnerabilities in software per se. The solution is how to make that software resilient. The problem is China could take down our critical infrastructure.
Yes, right. That comes in the why is it important part.
Okay, all right. So you don't lead with the why. You lead with the what.
You're engaging a reader for most readers. That's first of all, you have a specific mission, which is to reach as many Congress people and congressional staffs that have some sort of jurisdiction over this issue or this appropriation or whatever as you possibly can. That's an insider, lane that you're going down.
Yep.
You then have the problem of the Washington Post op-ed page editors, right?
Right.
Who don't, that's not what will bite. They don't give a shit that you want to get business from the government, right? They want to do something that makes their readers smarter or better informed or, makes them keep coming back to the op-ed page, whatever, right? So you have to balance the two, right? So the upfront, right, is, an acknowledgement that this is not an acknowledgement that this is sort of tedious. It's not a typical op-ed, if you will, with opinions about Trump or foreign policy or whatever, but it's important. And you should pay attention to it because it's potentially very important. This is what it is. This is how it works. And this is why it's important. And this is what we should do about it.
Okay. Okay.
Cool. I'm not saying that's exactly what you should do, but I'm saying like you have to think with two heads, right? You have to think congressional staffer and liberal Washington Post op-ed page editor. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you get those two people aligned so that both want to read it, both take away something that they didn't know that they should act on, that they should think about, whatever, right? You're talking to two very different audiences, but you can't talk to the prior audience, the former audience, until you've convinced the latter audience that it's worth publishing. That it's interesting enough for his view, her view of their readers, that they will publish it, right?
Right.
So the hurdle is the staffer is going to read it because that's the staffer's job, right? But the hurdle you have to get over is the Washington Post or the New York Times or whatever op-ed page editor who has, he goes to cocktail parties and talks about how sad it is that CNN has fallen into disrepair, right? These are not people who think about, critical software and, memory and so on and so forth. So you gotta move them. You gotta get them to move. And so the thing to do, I found when you do this stuff is you explain it to them in simple enough language that they could talk about it at a dinner party the next night.
Right.
And if you're able to do that, and in this case, it's not easy, I understand that. But if you're able to do that, then they'll say, you know what, this will work. This will work because I learned something. I can explain it at the dinner party, that I go to tomorrow night. And it's sort of interesting, it's like it might be true. Right? The Chinese might actually like shut down the fucking grid.
Right.
Right.
Okay, very good. Well, we will reassess it with that construct.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying but it's not the Bible, okay? But I'm trying to convey to you, you have two audiences. You got a hurdle audience, op-ed page editor of the Washington Post, op-ed page editors of the Washington Post. My friend David Shipley is there. So if it's a close call, I can get David to weigh in. I'm going to send it to, once you're done with it, I'm going to send it to Mike Duffy, who is the overall op-ed page editor. Now, I don't know what Mike's going to do with it because he's in Montana, he lives there now. He moved to
Okay, guys,
fucking
I gotta-
Montana.
and I got to drop for a doctor's appointment. But
Okay.
thanks,
So
John.
anyway,
and
that's
Joe.
that's it, and that's how it's going to work, and we just got to figure out how to get it over the hurdle.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the feedback. I got fixated on, there could be a cyber attack from China. And why that's important is because there's this technical issue in software that's wreaked havoc on us for 40 years, and the government's trying to solve it. And it's great they're going to solve it, but their solutions 10 years out, we have something we could do today.
Right, that's what you're doing. This is why it's important, blah, blah, blah. This is how we're going to fix it. This is how we can fix it faster, right?
Right.
But
But I think we lose the audience if we talk about memory safety first.
it's 2 sentences.
Yeah.
You got to tell them what it is before you can tell them what to do about it.
Right.
You can't say the car flew. You have to say Musk built.
Well, that's a good example. So if we say, hey, there are flaws in aircraft that haven't been resolved, right? And the reason that's important is it causes crashes.
Right.
So, or versus airplanes are crashing, at an obscene amount of rate. And it happens to be this MAX 37 issue. And here's what Boeing's doing about it. Is the crash the lead or the flaw in the engine the lead?
Flaw in the engine.
Flaw in the engine's the lead.
Because it's the little thing that becomes a big thing.
Okay.
The big thing we know about, okay, China, I know that China can shut down our grid, right?
Yeah.
What I want to know is how.
Yeah.
And so you're saying, well, there's this little thing that has the potential, indeed, is likely to lead to a big thing.
Yep.
And so let me tell you about the little thing, and then I'll tell you about the big thing, and then I'll tell you how we're going to fix it.
Very good. I appreciate your patience with me. I wanted to press that a couple different times, so I really internalized it. So I very much appreciate it.
Not a problem. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm absolutely right about this. I'm just saying that the one thing I do know that you may not know is how that op-ed page editor thinks.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I was a columnist and I know how they think, and I've written for the Post, I've written for the Journal, I've written, for the Boston Globe, I've written for the LA Times. I know how they think.
Yeah.
And I know how you can, it's not manipulate them, but you can lead them to where you want them to go. But you have to sort of touch their touch points with them. And that's what we have to honor, because really we don't give a shit about them. We're really talking about the congressional staffers and the senators and the congressmen themselves.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You bet. Take care.
Review it. Thank you.
Yeah, call me. Next week is good up until Thursday.
Okay, great. Thank you, John.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.